It's often called the old JEA building, but the Universal Marion building is the largest mid century modern building in Jacksonville's urban core. It's also one of hundreds of buildings profiled by my guest in his book, Jacksonville's Architectural Heritage. Dr. Wayne Wood, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Ann. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Wayne, this building is now empty. The future not really all that clear, but tell us a little bit about its past.
Well, in 1963, when the building was built, it was the second tallest skyscraper in the downtown urban core, as you mentioned. But there was another important thing to call attention to. It had this row after row after row of hexagonal windows that formed like a honeycomb. It was a very strange and remarkable looking building, and it was certainly built at the height of the movement we now call mid-century modern, where buildings are suddenly unusual in their shape and use of concrete forms and new use of color and geometric shapes. That was quite striking, and I'm sure people who lived in Jacksonville as that building was being constructed said, "What in the heck is that?" But because of its amazing size, 19 stories, it dominated the skyline in a way that other buildings did not. As you can think about it, many of the skyscrapers downtown Jacksonville are on the riverfront. This was built back 6 blocks away from the riverfront, so it's unusual that such a big building would be built there. But it was built for the Universal Marion Company, which was a machinery company based out of Miami, and they made this their world headquarters. And the star of this construction was Ketchum and Sharp. They were two shopping center developers. They were architects from New York, and they were renowned for their shopping center designs. But the other star was Bobby Jacobs. He was an entrepreneur, developer, and his father had started the S.S. Jacobs Company. And so Jacobs bought up over a city block in downtown Jacksonville, and the building we now think of as a JEA building, formerly the Universal Marion building, was actually 5 parts to it. It had the skyscraper, it had a 5-story Ivy's department store, it had Purcell's women's clothing, a 5-story medical building was planned but never built, and a big parking garage. So this was like a city within a city. They even planned a plaza with a skating rink.
Yeah, I was supposed to ask you about that, a skating rink. How would that even be possible in that period?
Well, I don't know, but the fact it never got built may be the answer to that question. Of course, a lot of places they have outdoor skating rinks that open only in the wintertime, so maybe that was their plan. But anyway, this building was even more stellar because of what was on top of it. At the top of this amazing skyscraper was a rotating restaurant. It was called Embers, and I have to admit that I ate lunch there with my family when I was just a little kid. It was the most amazing view of Jacksonville. In fact, the structure is still there, but the mechanism that made it rotate, which was its hallmark, is now gone. We can't have a rotating restaurant there again, most likely, but the vista is amazing because you see the skyline of Jacksonville backward. Usually you think of the skyline of Jacksonville seen from the river, but from the top of the Universal Marion building, everything is reversed. You see all these wonderful buildings of Jacksonville's skyline with the river in the background. Oh. Now the building is empty, and this is really a crisis in historic preservation because you have a building that's this important, a mid-century modern gem, and yet there's very little use for it. What can you put in an empty 19-story skyscraper? JEA moved out last year. I've been trying to interest people in developing maybe a university there. The University of Florida's new expanded campus in downtown Jacksonville could become a vertical campus. It's got parking. It's next to the library. It's next to the art museum, the city hall. What a perfect place for a college. And if not University of Florida, maybe SCAD, the Savannah College of Arts.
Why not an apartment building?
It could be an apartment building. It is, when you have living facilities, the plumbing is very, very different than what you would have in an office building. And although the building does need to have its electrical and plumbing revamped, and that could be done, I would be glad to see any use go there that could be done. The fact that it's not on the river makes it not as attractive to a corporate headquarters as some other buildings would want to be. So living facilities would be great, but my heart is still held out to make it a vertical college campus in the heart of downtown. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, it would be cool. That rotating restaurant on the top, I mean, at the time that was built, there were a lot of them around the country. They were kind of in vogue. I remember going to one myself, although I couldn't tell you what city it was in. This one is odd because a lot of those were kind of, round and visibly round. This is on the top of a very boxy building. What was the idea there in that design, do you suppose?
Well, true at the time, mid-century modern had a lot of streamlined and space age type structures that it used. And this one almost looks like a flying saucer that landed on top of the building, which goes along with the Jetson theme of this being a new ultra modern space age building. Unfortunately, the restaurant was removed when the charter company bought the building, and Raymond Mason, the president of the charter company, removed the mechanism that made it rotate and turned that into his office. What a heck of an office that was, though.
I would think it would be really cool to have a rotating office. Why would he remove the mechanism?
I have no idea, and I'm sorry that he moved it. I mean, it could be done again, but with the cost to do that, it would still be nice to have a restaurant there that the public could enjoy this unique view of downtown Jacksonville.
Well, if you're listening here, Dr. Wayne Wood's plea, and if you want to locate a college, there's an empty building downtown on Ashley Street that's available.
Well, it's also an important landmark for downtown Jacksonville, and it's one of those difficult buildings to preserve, and yet we have to find a way to do it because it is a very important landmark in Jacksonville's architectural heritage.
Well, Dr. Wayne Wood, thank you so much for being here and talking about it with us.
Oh, and a pleasure as always.